Hey, you action figure enthusiasts out there, JC here with another T&I toy review. And today's review is in association with MarvelousNews.com, your #1 news source for everything Marvel. And for today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at two new figures in the new Venom-themed Marvel Legend wave from Hasbro. These figures come in the unique style of packaging we've been seeing for this Venom wave with the white boxes. Up at the top, you've got the Legend Series logo. At the very top for Venom, you've got the Venom logo. And then for Spider-Ham, you've got a Spider-Man type logo. It's the only figure in this wave that has that on the top of the box. Then you've got the figures clearly displayed in the window boxes. Down below for Spider-Ham, you've got the Spider-Man logo and the name of the character. And then for Venom, you've just got the Venom logo. They don't put his name a second time. I guess they felt that was repetitive. On the sides of the packaging, you've got artwork for the characters. And then on the back of the packaging, you've got a look at the actual figures, brief bios in multiple languages, and then down below, look at all the figures in the wave that you need to get in order to complete the Monster Venom Build-A-Figure. All right, let's get these open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figures outside the packaging along with their other contents. Now, first of all, Venom comes with the right leg for the Monster Venom Build-A-Figure, and Spider-Ham comes with the torso section for the Monster Venom Build-A-Figure. And you can see with this one, the torso is actually done in two pieces that you'll end up snapping together. I'll be looking at the Monster Venom figure in its own review once I've looked at all the figures in this wave, so be sure to check back for that. Now, for the figures themselves, both figures come with alternate head sculpts. Now, the head sculpt that comes with the Spider-Ham figure is not really meant for the Spider-Ham figure itself. You can technically fit it on there, and I'll show you that in a second. It is an alternate head for the character known as Pork Grind, which is an actual character that appears in the same universe as Spider-Ham. But that head sculpt is actually meant to go with this Venom figure, and I'll go into more detail with that in just a moment. Now, with the Venom figure, Venom comes with two different head sculpts as well, and it's really this unmasked one that's attached to the figure that I think most people are going to want to buy this figure for. The figure itself and the other head that comes with this figure are pretty much reissues of the previous Venom that Hasbro did a year or so ago. But this unmasked head we did not get before. This is based on the McFarlane style of drawing for the character. McFarlane was the first one to actually draw this character in the comics. And so the big bushy eyebrows is definitely kind of a style of McFarlane and how he portrayed the character. He's got the blonde hair and everything. Skin tone is good. And just like with the unmasked Cletus Cassidy head sculpt that we got with the Carnage figure I looked at the other day, this looks like something that is really straight out of the comic book. So I got to give major props to Hasbro with this unmasked head sculpt. And the one thing that people didn't really like about this one when we first saw it was they thought it was a little big for the body, but I actually think it works well with this, again in style with the McFarlane look that he portrayed the character with, especially when you have these tentacle pieces. This is actually a separate piece that you can remove from the figure if you want to, but I don't think the head sculpt looks too big on this figure having it actually in hand. Okay, now switching out the heads is easy. Just pop off the head. You've got the ball hinge joint there. And if you want to take this extra piece off, you can. You actually don't need to remove the head to take this extra piece off. It'll lift up over the head if you want to. Maybe it's a little bit easier if you take the head off first. And then it just plugs into the back of the figure. There's a little peg here to secure it. You've got those double holes on this figure because it is a reuse of the Hyperion mold, just like with the previous Venom figure that Hasbro did. And I'm going to go on and snap the unmasked head back on just so you can get a look at it without that extra piece. And even without that extra piece, again, I really don't think it looks too big on this body anymore. I agree with a lot of you when we first saw the figure back during Toy Fair that it seemed a little big, and maybe Hasbro shrunk it down a little bit. I don't know. But I think it actually looks pretty good on the figure now that I have it in hand. Now we'll go ahead and pop this off again and put on the masked head that comes with this figure. Now, I believe this is pretty much the same head sculpt that we got on the previous Venom figure, only without the tongue, the one that had the tongue sticking out with the neon green stuff, slobber coming out of his mouth. So I believe this is this head sculpt, this alternate masked head sculpt that comes with this new figure is the same one as that. They just removed the tongue, which I know a lot of you had actually wished that they had done or had made it so the tongue was removable. So, you know, this is actually kind of a unique head sculpt, even though, again, it's very similar to that one that we got on the previous one. Now, we got a second head sculpt with that previous one with the mouth closed and the teeth and everything. I don't actually like this one that much, but if you want to use that one on this figure, on this new figure, it should work as well. You have to kind of push it on there a little bit, give it a little work. That ball joint might move on you a little bit, but you can snap it on there and it does fit nice and tight. This was my least favorite head with the previous one, and I don't like it much better on this figure either. Now, even though this particular Venom figure only comes with one pair of hands, which is the closed-fisted hands, you can take those alternate open hands that came with the previous Venom figure, and you can, of course, use it on this figure if you want to. So we'll just pop one of the hands off here. You pop it off, you got the peg on the hand, the hole in the arm, and it'll plug in, and again, it'll fit nice and tight because it is the exact same mold as the previous Venom figure. Okay, now getting back to that pork grind head that comes with the Spider-Ham figure. So this is actually made to go on this Venom figure, I believe. There was some debate whether this should go on this Venom figure or on the Build-A-Figure, but the colors on the Build-A-Figure have blue on it, and so it doesn't really match up with this head sculpt. Plus, this Venom body is more in scale with the actual pork grind character. Pork grind in the comics should be bigger than Spider-Ham, but not as big as that Monster Venom Build-A-Figure. So again, they really made it to go on this Venom figure, and you just snap it on just like you would with any head sculpt. And basically now you have pork grind, which is the Spider-Ham universe version of Venom. And I do like this pork grind head. I like the way the eyes are done and how he's got the teeth sticking out of his mouth, and he's got the long pig-like nose. And, you know, I think they've done a really good job. The ears, you know, they stick up and they're done with a rubber material, so you don't have to worry about them snapping off. But I do really like the detailing with the teeth and everything. I think they've done a good job. And I just think it's kind of a fun way to do an extra character. I know some of you may not be terribly familiar with Spider-Ham and stuff, but, you know, I remember him, you know, when I was younger, a teenager, he was in the comics and stuff. So I think it's kind of cool that we're getting a character like this as kind of an extra, especially since when you look at the Spider-Ham figure itself, it is a much smaller figure. It's done in the 6-inch scale, but it is a much smaller figure, and it's not super articulated, which I'll go into in just a minute. But, you know, I think it's just kind of an extra cool thing that they included. Now, if you want to, you can pop the Spider-Ham head off, and you can put the pork grind head on the Spider-Ham figure. But again, it's not really meant to go on this figure. Pork grind is not this small, and obviously the costumes don't match up either. Now, for the figures themselves, obviously this is the exact same figure that we previously got with the Venom that Hasbro did, so there's no difference. Again, it does reuse that Hyperion body mold, which is why you've got the holes on the back. Now with this, with at least my particular figure, I do want to note that the white here on the bottom portion of the spider symbol does get a little blurry. It was much more solid on the original version. I don't know if that's just with my figure or if that's how it'll be on all the figures, but that is something I kind of noticed. And then you have the whites on the gloves with the little black dots there, and that was the same as the previous one. The figure just has the closed fists, and then the rest of the figure is done with just a solid black color. So like I said before, the unique thing about this figure is the unmasked head. You also get this extra tentacle piece around his neck, so it looks like his mask is about to form, which is kind of cool. And if you want, you've got these tentacle pieces that come with the Space Venom, not Space Venom, but the Agent Venom figure, the Walgreens exclusive one. And I like to put this on the back of my regular Venom figure. So it'll just plug into one of those holes on the back if you just want some extra tentacles for your Venom. Okay, now for the Spider-Ham figure, overall I think they did a good job nailing the look of the character. He is a fun character. He appeared years ago. I forget if it was in an actual Spider-Man title or in his own title. I want to say it was his own title. I want to say it was one of those Marvel Star comics, if I remember correctly. But definitely kind of a fun character, a take on Spider-Man. Obviously, he's a pig that dresses up as Spider-Man, so definitely kind of funny. And he's a smaller character, so it doesn't bother me that this is a smaller figure. It is done in 6-inch scale, but obviously it is a smaller character. And overall, I think the look of it's good. I like the sculpting detail with the webbing and the red portions of the costume. That's all actually sculpted, as with the spider symbol on his chest, so that looks good. The right hand is done in a web shooting type position or pose, and the left hand is done in just an open pose. The paints are pretty good. You've got the crisp red throughout most of the costume with the blue, the kind of bright blue color. Now I do want to note around his waist here, it is a darker red. It's a much darker red, and I don't think that's how it is in the comics. I think it should all be the same red. I might be wrong on that, but but I think it should be all the same color, just like with Spider-Man. So I don't know why they went with this darker red here at the waist section. But otherwise, you know, I think it's a solid figure. On the back, it's pretty plain. I don't think there's supposed to be a spider symbol on the back for Spider-Ham, like with the regular Spider-Man. I won't swear to it, but I don't think it's supposed to. And again, you do have the sculpting detail with the webbing and everything on there. Now, the big downside with this figure, though, is with the articulation. There's really not a lot of poses you can put this guy in. And again, I understand he's a smaller character and all, but especially with the legs, if they'd just given him a little more articulation, I think it would have made the figure more fun in general. Now, we'll go over the articulation real quick. You can turn the head to the left and the right. He's got some up and down movement, but not a whole lot. The arms are attached with standard ball hinge joints, so you can get the arm out pretty good. I actually like the articulation on the arms with this figure. You can rotate at the shoulder. He does have an elbow joint. It's a single hinged elbow, but he can still, you know, for a small figure like this, he can bend decently. And you've also got rotation there at the elbow. You've got rotation with the hands, no hinges on the hands or anything. No ab crunch, obviously, but you do have rotation at the waist. You can also pivot to the left and the right there at the waist, which is nice. But again, with the legs, there's very little articulation. There's no crotch articulation. There's no knee articulation. The only articulation you get on the leg is you can rotate the feet here, and obviously no ankle pivot. And then the figure does have 2 peg holes on the bottom of the feet. Not that you really need it with this guy. And then with Venom, his articulation is exactly the same as the previous Venom figure that we got, but I'll go over it real quick. With the head, you can turn to the left and to the right, and it is on a ball hinge joint, so he can look down really good, and he can look back really good as well. And you get pivot with this, a little bit of head pivot with this one. Arms attached with your standard ball hinge joint there at the shoulder, so you can get his arm out good, and he has good rotation there at the shoulder. He has a bicep swivel, he has a double hinged elbow, so good bending there, has rotation at the wrist and hinges on the hand, so up and down movement. Has an ab crunch joint, so he can crunch forward about that much. And then he can look back pretty good there at the midsection as well. You've got a waist swivel with this one. With the legs, you can do the splits about that much. And then you can get the leg forward about that much. And you can do the leg out and back. You've got a thigh swivel. You've got a double jointed knee, so good bending there at the knee. And then you've got a boot cuff swivel. And then hinges with the feet, so up and down movement. And then you do have ankle pivot with this one, of course. And 2 peg holes on the bottom of the feet. Now these figures stand, the Venom figure stands just about 7 inches, a little bit under 7 inches tall. And then the Spider-Ham figure stands under 4 inches tall. Even if you count to the tips of his ears, it is under 4 inches. Okay, so that's my review. And I gotta say, surprisingly, I really like both of these figures. They're actually kind of my favorites in this wave. Maybe real close with Carnage. With the Venom figure, I really love the Eddie Brock head. I think they did a fantastic job with that. Looks just like how McFarlane drew him. It's right out of the pages of the comics. The extra neck piece is nice, and I even like that they kind of varied up the second masked head sculpt, so it's not exactly the same thing that we got with the previous Venom figure. And while, you know, you might be thinking, you know, do I really need to buy a second Venom body mold just to get that unmasked head? If you're a fan of Spider-Ham and the pork grind character, I would say yes, because you can basically now take the second Venom mold, body mold, and stick that pork grind head on it and have a completely new character. So that second Venom figure really isn't going to waste, which I think is really kind of a cool idea on Hasbro's part. Now for the Spider-Ham figure itself, it is a smaller figure. My biggest complaint would be it would have been nice if they'd given it a little more articulation. I really like Spider-Ham, so you know I particularly like this figure. If you're not a fan of the character, then I could definitely see you wanting to pass on it. But I like the character. I think it looks good, and then with the addition of the pork grind head, to me it makes it worth getting. Now both of these figures, along with the rest of the Venom wave, has started to see a limited release. It's been hitting overseas. We should see it in much greater release, especially here in the United States, in the coming days at the end of July or early August. That's really when I expect to start seeing this wave hit in full force. We'll have a full image gallery up at marvelousnews.com. There'll be a link in the video description below. As always, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you're so inclined, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already by hitting that button down below. I'd really appreciate it. Also, please hit that bell notification so you're notified every time I upload a new video. And of course, you can also follow me on my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch accounts. I have links to all those in the video description as well. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.